Secondly, on the National Defense Authorization Act, it doesn't include a military COVID vaccine mandate. Is the president's objection to removing that mandate so strong that he's willing to veto the NDAA?
So let me just first say I'll answer that question, but I do want to make a few points here. So I don't want to get ahead of the process. As we know, there's the conference language. There's still the legislative process that has to move ahead on this. And so again, I'm not going to get ahead of the vote, or I'm not going to get ahead of the president. But every year, as you know, the NDAA has some provisions we support and some we do not. And what the president's going to do is he's going to judge this piece of legislation, this bill, on its entirety when that occurs. Again, there's a process moving, there's a process that's happening, and so we're going to let that happen in Congress. I will note, just to be very, very clear here, what we saw, what we think happened here is Republicans in Congress have decided that they rather fight against the health and well-being of our troops than protecting them, and we believe that it is a mistake. What we saw happen on the NDAA as it relates to the vaccine mandate. Making sure our troops are prepared and ready for service is a priority for President Biden. The vaccination requirement for COVID does just that. I'll add one more thing, just a little bit of a data point here, so all of you have this. Look, before COVID vaccine existed, nearly 700 Department of Defense personnel and service members died of COVID. Almost 100 of them were active duty. And so since this past spring, there has been one death due to COVID. So vaccinations work and save the lives of our service members. So we believe that it was a mistake.
Can I ask on the funding negotiations? Republican leader McConnell yesterday made pretty clear that they hadn't made any significant headway on any of the major issues, including the top line, and said that would likely lead to a CR if it didn't change soon. How does the president view his role in these negotiations? I understand the critical role Shalonda plays. I understand there are House Democrats, Senate Democrats, House Republicans, Senate Republicans. Given the timeline here, what does the president view as his role, his necessity here?
Yeah, well, look, just last week, as I was mentioning, when he met with congressional leadership, that was part of the readout that we provided to all of you, is how important it is to get this government funding done. He believes, and I just stated this moments ago, he believed that we were able to do this in a bipartisan way last year, and we should be able to do that in a bipartisan way this year. We have the time to get that done. And to your point, yes, our OMB director, Shalonda Young, is leading the process. She knows how to get this done. She knows how to reach across the aisle to make sure that we deliver for the American people. These are not partisan issues. These are real critical issues that we're talking about. We're talking about the different specifics of the government funding that matter to the American people. So, like I said, the president spoke to leadership last week. It was part of the readout that we provided to all of you, and he'll continue to have those conversations.
Just real quick, is the administration at this point opposed to any CR into next year?
Look, I'm not going to get ahead of what's happening right now in Congress. What we believe is that we should be able to have an omnibus bill like we have done in the past, and it should be bipartisan, and we have enough time to get that done.
Thanks, Karine. Senator Manchin now has an amendment to the NDAA he's hoping to advance on the floor for his permitting reform provisions. Does the White House continue to support the effort at this stage?
So the president believes we must pass the permitting reform bill so that the U.S. can realize the benefits of the historic investments in the Inflation Reduction Act and the bipartisan infrastructure law. He supports permitting reform. As I said just a couple days ago, we will continue to work with Congress and find the best path forward so we can enact this bill. So it is a priority for this president.
If I could just follow up to your answer to Josh's question, and I think John Kirby said the same thing this morning, that it was a mistake for the provision rescinding the vaccine mandate to be included in the NDAA. But specifically, Josh asked you if the president would veto the NDAA if the provision remains. Is the president threatening to veto the NDAA?
I just answered that question, which was there's a process in place. We talked about the conference language. There's a legislative process that has to go forward, right? I'm not going to get ahead of votes. I'm not going to get ahead of what that process is going to look like. The president's going to look at the NDAA in its entirety and make his judgment on that. And I'm not leaning any way here. I'm just laying out the facts of how this works.